Another week of college hockey, another week of MNCAA. It's our NCHC crew here from the great state of Minnesota. Max Veech along with myself, Nick Maxson. Max, just literally getting off the plane from Pittsburgh. He's still at the airport, Max. Glad to see that you're back. Glad you had safe travels, although you had some delays. But good to see you back, my friend.
Yeah, traveling to lovely Wheeling, West Virginia, great part of the country. I just wish it was a little bit nicer along the way. Plane travel is just as horrible as it always is, but I found myself drooling and making a mess of my front side here on the plane when I was waking up, and so sounds like UMD and I had a lot in common for our last performances.
It's been a rough go, just like your travels have been, Max, for UMD to start the season. So let's just cut to the chase, right? UMD conference play opens up for both of our squads, last week. And the Bulldogs, unfortunately, unable to get into the win column. A couple losses on the weekend, unfortunately. So let's just take it right through it, Max. Once you go ahead and give us a lowdown on what happened. We'll start with Friday. That was a bigger loss, especially because it just seemed like the UMD start was really what catapulted the weekends on both nights.
Correct. Yeah, we had talked last week about whether or not the week off was going to be good or bad. I kind of lamented it, rightfully so, as I always am. Correct. In the fact that it was just not going to be the right intensity. They're coming off of a Stonehill series, which took more effort than it probably should have, and that's not the level of play you're going to get out of North Dakota generally. And then you have a week off in between, and it's hard to keep that energy up. It's hard to get the guys up, and there's people on the team on both sides, but I'm just talking about UMD here that should be familiar with the franchise, the history of those two squads kind of going against each other. And so it's one of those things where you kind of just wish that mentality was brought in physicality more so than it was throughout the series. And it wasn't, especially not to start. It's another one of those things that if UMD plays periods 2 and 3 only for the entire season, they might have a different record right now. But you have to play an entire, full 60 minutes, and unfortunately, UMD hasn't figured out how to put together a first period yet. That was especially evident on Friday, but both nights, if we're being completely honest. 2 goals, right? Kind of back to back. I'm not going to say they were like 7 seconds apart like we've seen them before, but they were really quick. And then we've got a third one there that was a real backbreaker as well, with Guyon kind of what I thought was sitting on top of the puck, and then it gets kind of poke checked in. Ref was still trying to find it instead of blowing his whistle when he couldn't see it. Semantics on whether or not that was the right move or not. I feel one way. I believe Sandlin feels one way, but he was inevitably correct in his assessment that he, being the ref, was never going to change their mind after they made that call anyway. So it is what it is. You kind of have to live with it. That's the punches. I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the game anyway. It was just one of those hurdles that you've got, beat down to start the game. You get something call that you think is going against you when it shouldn't, and then it just kind of, snowballs from there.
Yeah, and the snow hasn't even started to fly yet around the Twin Cities here, Max. And mind you, officiating for both of our squads to start the season has at times been questionable. But what isn't questionable now, Max, is Bulldogs have a bit of an uphill battle. I know we talked at the beginning of the year that you kind of lamented 7th in the NCHC. I think that's too low. Are we starting to come around to either one of two ideas? Either one, that preseason poll, which granted we both know nobody really knows what's going to happen, that maybe they were onto something, or two, is it more of the fact that you just think that, again, this is a young squad, they're just trying to figure things out? Because you had mentioned off air that there's some concern, not necessarily, and this is too early. This is one of those too early sort of segments, right? But you're sort of worried about what a season like this, if it were to continue, what that might look like for the roster moving forward beyond this season.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that 7th place ranking, they nailed it. I mean, as of what as far as what we've seen to date, they absolutely nailed it. They're playing like a 7th place team. I still think they finish above Miami. The only hope for them to climb, if they continue at this rate, is that Omaha continues to fall at the rate that they're at. They're winless in their last 6 over a month. UMD was there last year. They've done it. I would say they're at risk of being there again. They've got a couple of winnable games coming up here, but I would say that they're not in a significantly better position than that. So they've got some growing to do, and they've got to do it quickly. But yeah, as you kind of alluded to there, and I mentioned it off air, was Adam Guyon pulled in Friday's game after a significant. I think they probably had 5 by the time he was pulled, and then Saturday was a quick turnaround, 2 goals really quickly. He was out of there. They're not pulling him because he's doing bad. He's being left hung out to dry. They're pulling him as a courtesy. They're trying to save some of his stats, and some goalies want to be left in there and kind of soak in the misery, and other goalies want to just get me out of here. I'm going to come back stronger another day, and I'm hoping it's that second type of goalie. But if we get into a position where this is a recurring theme over and over and over again, it's tough for a goalie to want to kind of stick around, especially if he's clearly the best player on the team and most consistent night in and night out, and getting absolutely no help. So there's something that I think needs to change on that front, and it doesn't have to be effective right away to start, but you need to start seeing that effort and mentality shift in some of the players that are playing in front of him to make him realize that, hey, they're not giving up on me either. I can't give up on the team. This is somewhere I want to be. They want me here, and kind of build it from there. But it's just it's not that I think it's a problem yet. It's just a red flag I'm noticing now that I don't want to grow into a bigger problem.
No, and you're right there, Max, because at the end of the day, you don't want a Patrick Waugh situation, right? You don't want to have him hung out to dry and then him walking in front of Mario Tremblay and saying, I'm not, I'm done with this, right? You don't see the progress, right? You don't see the effort, as you mentioned. And again, to be clear, we're not saying that's the case, right? We clearly see that this is a young squad that's going through some very difficult growing pains. And in this conference in the NCHC, it's hard growing pains, right? There's no easy weekends. You're going to see another one of those this last week, and we'll touch more on Miami and my impressions of that team, which I will tell you, spoiler alert, they're a much improved hockey team. So with that being said, I want to stick with that, Max, because we got some college hockey news this week that we were expecting. That is, again, NCAA approving the CHL players to be allowed to play college hockey, with one exception. If they have signed an entry-level contract, their ELC, with the team that they were drafted, they would be technically not in amateur status, so they would be the exception to the rule, so they would not be allowed. But I'm curious, as we're talking about, albeit lightly, impacts on potential roster shakeups, and granted, it's November, right? It's very easily UMD could turn this around, right? But I'm curious to know your thoughts on, now that this resolution has now been passed and it's been final, could a team like Minnesota Duluth, or even my St. Louis State Huskies, could they benefit from this? Or is this another one of those deals where, when you combine it with the NIL, it's only going to benefit the teams at the top? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say that it's certainly something that our teams could benefit from. Along with that news, I'm just going to kind of snowball, and I want you to drag me back here. But there's 2 things I don't want to lose before we get there. One, we already saw a commitment from one of those players going to Lake State now. So it happens very, very quickly. We already had some prior commitments thinking that this news was going to happen for Arizona State. I think you're going to see them snowball in throughout the year. And we've got some big names that everybody's looking out for. Awesome. 2, Brad Schlossman noted that there was another caveat in there as well about some sort of graduation language. I have not gotten to read that article yet, so I would encourage everybody to go and look at that and see what the caveat is there. But the third one is, we already got notice that AIC is a team that is choosing, based on this news, as in conjunction with some of the other changes in college hockey, bigger coaching size, lower team roster, a couple of different factors. They're choosing not to participate in D1 hockey anymore. They're going down to a D2 level, which many people didn't know existed. It does, for the record. It's just I think it's a single conference. There's no postseason tournament. There's
no NCAA tournament for it. Yeah,
correct. It's different. So we're seeing teams that are not going to be benefiting from it because their board, or whoever's making those decisions, doesn't see that it's going to be a positive for them in the future. And it's going to be a little bit more of a hindrance, which you can look at it one of 2 ways, and they're choosing the other way. So tough to see that. I hate to see some programs, especially one that's had the success that AIC has had, get kind of pushed aside by the upper management there. Upper management. I talk about these like they're professional franchises. But
we're traveling on business, Max, so I think your vocabulary is still on
yeah,
business mode.
it really is. Yeah, but
But
you know,
to your point, though, Max, right? Because really, it sounds like Eric Lang, who I've had the chance to talk to a couple of years ago, when we were out there in Allentown for an NCAA regional. They were playing the Big Bad Michigan Wolverines. You know, you could sense that with his announcement, and it was a lengthy one. It sounds like this came at a surprise to him, right? This wasn't something where, you know, there were tea leaves or there were breadcrumbs, or maybe there was conversations, albeit maybe behind closed doors in the past. It did sort of I got the sense anyway, I want to get your opinion on this, that this took him by surprise. Now, again, from our seats, right? Seats, you know, up in the fans' second level, we don't know what happened, but it does seem to kind of coincide with your thoughts, and that is you combine NIL, you combine now a potential open door for more players coming from different leagues to fill these spots. AIC has, as a school, maybe that's the fairest way to say it, has taken the position that college hockey just isn't going to either survive or it's not going to be competitive. And I want to take this one step further, Max. If you're going to D2, to me, the program's done. And here's why I say that. With no tournament, with no nothing, then what is the school's incentive to keep funding the program, to keep, you know, essentially putting money into it? I don't see it. So are they just almost pseudoing saying the white flag is up? What do you make of that?
Yeah, first and foremost, in terms of being a surprise, I absolutely think it took everybody in that locker room, coaching staff, players, everybody by surprise. I think one of the players had just posted about it, or reposted it on Twitter, X, whatever you want to refer to it as, saying, you know, it's the first time hearing of it. Glad I got the, you know, forewarning before anybody else. And you always feel for those players, because as a university, you can't bring it up to the players because there's going to be panic. And then when you don't bring it up to the players, you look like, you know, complete assholes for not doing anything about it or forewarning them. I would imagine the coach is probably in that same position. He put out another post saying he was really disappointed in it. It was somewhere he played. He always kind of ends up returning to, obviously the coach there now. And so that's somebody that I really feel for. And I'm curious to see if, being that he's got so many ties to the program, that he's going to stick around there, or if he's going to be searching for another D1 job at a different university, because he's had so much success with a smaller talent pool to work with. And I think he would be, you know, relatively highly sought after. He's certainly got more credentials than some of the coaches that are in the league, in the, you know, college hockey world right now. So that's one part of it. Another part is I think they were renting their rink.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Yep.
Outright owned. So if those costs have gone up in addition to it for whatever reason, that could factor into it. I don't know about the other sports that they kind of sponsor at the university. So I have no idea if that has anything to do with it, where they're funneling money or bleeding somewhere else or whatever. I'm not going to pretend to do it. I'm just noting that these are potential causes that could have been contributing factors to it. And I doubt that we're ever going to get the complete and full story. We never got it with Robert Morris when they left and inevitably came back. I don't think that we're going to get it here as well. They're going to tell you what they want you to hear. And, you know, that's kind of their right to do it. It's not a public university, whatever. So I just want to see some more transparency and availability for these players' sake, because there's a lot of these guys that aren't going to find spots on other rosters, you know, with all of the other transfer portal options that we have now and a new player pool coming in. They were already probably coming on the hot seat in terms of where they were at in their careers. And it's tough to see now. There's some guys that were promised some things that are not going to be, those promises aren't going to be upheld. So I don't want to badmouth them too much. I do that enough with Atlantic hockey, and I'm going to stay out of that for this one and just give my sincerest condolences to everybody that's impacted by that, and express my own disappointment. And if there's one team I'm rooting for coming out of that conference for this year, it'd be one hell of a last hurrah. Not that St. Cloud wants to see them in the playoffs, but it would be one hell of a last hurrah to see them make it there and maybe get another win we'll just have a nice showing. It'd be a nice, storybook ending to at least the D1 portion of what they've been to date. Not saying they couldn't come back. Like I said, RMU has done it, but the writing might be on the wall for this one.
And honestly, yeah, I mean, I know St. Cloud State fans would probably go into nighttime tremors going back to AIC, but I think you mentioned it, very, eloquently, which is, that's a small market team. If you want to, make the comparison, they've done a lot with a little, right? And Eric, again, the head coach there, has done an extraordinary job. Again, a former player, he's coached there for quite a time. Again, that victory over St. Cloud. Say what you want about the ice conditions. Say what you want about everything, right? They still played.
Yeah, both teams had to play.
You had to play right at the end of the day. And, it kind of put them on the map. I mean, they've been in the tournament here and there, and I don't say that disrespectfully, but, again, Atlantic Hockey is a conference, not the strongest, but they still come out and they do give a fight. And to be able to have that commitment to a program, albeit on the smaller market side, as I phrase it, you have to commend that, right? Because it shows, I mean, they're a tight-knit group. Again, Eric Lang, hearing him talk about some of the NCAA tournament losses plus the wins, you can tell that he has invested a lot in the program. It means a lot to him, and it probably means a lot to, obviously, the players, the community. So this is sad news either way for college hockey as a whole. And I'm with you. Unless they're playing either one of our teams, we do wish them the best, because unfortunately, there's so many questions left unanswered. Will they drop to D2, or is that just another smoke screen? We won't know until really we get to that point, maybe April at the earliest. We'll just have to follow it. But again, we do express our disappointment. I'm with you, Max, with this decision to essentially take down competition from Division I. Max, let's bring it back to a little bit closer to home, NCHC. So your team, not the best results. My team got the 2 wins. I will tell you, though, it wasn't easy.
I was just going to say, I was looking at the summaries, breakdown, stat sheets, whatever you want to refer to them as, game notes. What else can I throw out there? Analysis. I'm done with that. But they look like great games. I mean, we're talking about some overtime games. We're talking about 1-goal games. We're talking about a program that is figuring it out. Not getting the results yet, but I think they are on their way. And we've mentioned it 3 or 4 times, and I'm seeing it in front of us now.
Yeah, and I will tell you this. I talked to Anthony Arena at length on both nights, and actually compliment him quite a bit, because they went down 2-0 Friday. But mind you, halfway through that game, shots were like 12-12. Halfway through the game, it was a tight game. Miami was disrupting St. Cloud in the breakout, also on the zone entries. They had a game plan, and they stuck to it. And I think what's most impressive, too, is there's some talent there. Johnny Waldron, he's a heck of a player. Ambrosio, heck of a player. Carl Joyello, just name it. And Ethan Dahlmeyer, man, both their goaltenders were really good this weekend. But I want to commend Miami for not doing what they've done in the past. And I want to phrase that very carefully, because this team did not quit. Going down 2-0, it was a sloppy first game. They got a couple of bounces. They clawed their way back. They pushed St. Cloud to overtime. St. Cloud, it was 30 some odd seconds they left in overtime before Granite Shine got the game winner. It was a very even game. Now, granted, St. Cloud, when I talked to them Saturday, weren't too happy that they sort of played into a Miami game plan per se. Saturday, still close game 3-1, but the tail on the tape would tell you that St. Cloud really dominated game number 2. Much more free flowing. They were able to get to their game. But you can see the improvement already with this Redhawks squad. They're going to give each other fits. Again, I think we've talked about it before. They may not reflect in wins and losses just yet, but this team has got some pieces there, and they can continue to keep those pieces, which I think with Noreen, he's Chris Mayotte 2.0. Yeah. Great X's and O. He's a motivator. And I talked to him on Friday. You go down 2-0. What was your message at the bench? And his mantra has been, how are we going to react? Like, are we just, what are we going to do? How are we going to approach the next shift? And it looks like his players have bought in. And as a college hockey fan, I'm excited about that, right? Because they've been in a position, hasn't been great, especially when you're talking wins, losses the past couple of years. You're just kind of hoping them to break through. Colorado College has done that. They're perfect 8-0, right? Speaking of the Tigers,
Right.
Miami may not be better on paper in terms of their record. I will tell you already that squad is better from the eye test, the way they play the game, and they do not back down. That team is already very early on a much improved team, and they're going to be a pest of a hockey squad the rest of this year.
Yeah, I haven't gone back to look at what their record ended up at last year. Obviously, they were at the bottom of the NCHC, but it's one of those things like, do they double their win total? Is that good enough for them to say, hey, this is a significant improvement? Is it just 2 or 3 more wins? Is the record? I would like to know what they're shooting for there. And if it is just progress and, we don't get any more wins, which I do think we will, then that's fine as well. But to hear what the mentality is would be great for a struggling program to know what we have to do to get the same kind of effort and results out of our kids. So I think he's well on his way to getting something good there. Like you had mentioned, not losing guys is going to be significantly better for the program, where they were fighting to keep people indoors there for the last couple of years. Now he's bringing additional people in. Having that internal competition is only going to give him the more flexibility to put the best product on the ice as well. So that's an obvious, easy impact right away, and I think that's only going to get better over the next 2 or 3 years. So.
And I don't know how you measure success with Miami, right? I think if you're Noreen and company, I get the sense that it's not going to be based on wins and losses. I think it's going to be based on the process. Right. It's a cliche, right? But I do think that's what they're shooting for, right? Is how do they play? Do they play consistently? Do they elevate their game? Do they not back down, right? And more so be tough to play against, right? We've seen it in years past with a different regime at the helm, where this team would go down 2-0 early, and you could see the posture change. You could see the shoulder slump, and it was like they've already checked out of the hotel and the game is done, and there's still 55 minutes left, right? This team is not that. So already they're an improvement there. Stylistically, do they play sort of a opportunistic style? Maybe is the best way. Still, yes. But they're building blocks. And already their recruiting pipeline miles better than we've seen in the past, right? They've already got some decent names committed to the program. So if even next year, right, I do think we'll see more next year if they can hold on to the talent that they have and they can continue to build this pipeline, which I think he will, just based on my interactions with them, which has now been 3 times. And based on what I've seen, this program is laying a foundation that they're going to build upon. They're going to be a much better team. I would even say as early as this half of the season, but definitely going into next year, if those pieces continue to fall into place, this is going to be a much different Redhawks team, and one to be kind of reckoned with. And that's great news for college hockey.
Yeah, I just don't want their goalies to get too good, because they've seen what happens in the past. North Dakota will come knocking and take another one from them. So you got to be good, but not too good.
Not too good, right?
Yeah, you're going to be on tape. You're going to have somebody who's going to be pulling that tape. They're going to have a couple of games against them to see what's on the record there. But I think that we're both in the same camp there. I did see, was it Brnovic winning the NCHC Rookie of the Week this week?
We did, yes. 3 goals on the weekend. The kid can shoot the puck at the end of the day. And he can do it in a couple different ways. He scored a beautiful Gabe Perreault-like goal on Friday night. Where
Explain to me what that is.
What's that?
Explain to me what that is. The Gabe Perreault-like goal.
So he's a left-handed shot coming in from the right
all
side.
The best ones are.
Yeah, exactly, right? Does the shoulder fake on the forehand, goes backhand, patiently goes around the outstretched left pad, tucks in it behind and tucks it in. So it's not a shooter's type goal. It's a skilled, patient play. So he can make those kind of plays. We know that he's got a wicked, quick, but also very hard release. He made those. He is taking over VD Mietnins on the power play, which, mind you, St. Cloud is struggling on the power play. They're close to 10% in the season. It's tough. I will tell you, though, I'm not quite as scared. They're moving the puck well. They're a little bit too predictable. There's a lot of new faces on the units right now. Sure. And I don't think there's enough chemistry and continuity there yet. There's plenty of talent. There's no question there. But they just haven't gotten comfortable with each other. and they default to the Bernovic one-timer too much. So Miami
That's what I
was
was
taking
gonna,
that away all
yeah,
weekend long. Yeah.
that's what I was going to ask is it what I've seen in UMD in the past, not so much this year, they're getting shots off, where they're continually passing it around looking for the perfect look and passing up okay or good looks? Or are they getting shots off? They're just not quality shots or losing possession of the puck. I haven't seen enough of the power play to figure out what
There's
the
two
true
things.
issue is there.
There's two things. One, the puck movement is too slow, right?
Yeah.
So Miami likes to pressure the puck carrier, albeit not as aggressive as say Boston College did. Boston College was made a mess of our power play just because we want to be casual with it. And again, that's behavior consistent with a unit that's still figuring out, right? And to them, there's one player that they want to shoot the puck, and that's Austin Bernovic. So it's slow puck movement, it's predictability. And then when they get the look that they want, let's just say that there's already two bodies there to block shots, to disrupt it. So even Bernovic's trying to, I'll shoot the puck, but it hits knees, or he'll fake it. And then there's no other option there, right? So I think the power play unit has to figure out and be willing to shoot the puck from different spots, right? I think that's the other part of it. You can't be that predictable. There's still some decent puck movement there, but too slow. They're trying to go to the same guy. They got to switch it up. And they just got to be more assertive with it too. So
the Ben Steves last year power play where you just find him in that one position, the opposite of the Ovi Kitchen as a lefty there, is the tried and true way of finding a power play goal. So yeah, if they can figure it out, in terms of getting other people different looks and being less predictable there, I think that gets corrected pretty quickly. Because like you said, there's guys on that team that can shoot the puck, and they're having success everywhere else. So they don't have to just rely on that. So it becomes a little bit less forced in some of those scenarios, or has the ability to be less forced.
Correct. And I think you hit it in the head. I think they're trying to force feed Bernovic. Again, we know his talent level to shoot the puck, but you can't be a one-man band in the power play. You got to distribute the wealth. Other players have got to be willing to shoot the puck. And you see this in the NHL where it doesn't have to be the big bomb, the one-timer. It doesn't have to be the walk-in wrister. Sometimes you just get it through and you just create havoc in front of the crease. I don't think they're looking at it and approaching it that way. To your point, I think they're looking for that perfect execution, meaning, the NHL 25 goal. That mentality has to change too, right? They'll figure it out, no question. But right now it's a struggle. But the PK has been really good. They've only given up 3 power play goals against all season long. So they're over 94% now in the season. So he's been excellent. So that's a positive. So if they can get that power play number up, their special have arguably been pretty good.
Yeah. There's something I haven't noticed as much this year as I have in the past years of watching college hockey, and that's defensive players shooting the puck from anywhere but the dead center of the ice. And I don't know if it's just a structure change that everybody's kind of gone to more of that diamond or an umbrella style where you've got somebody up at the top all the time. But I would like to see more defensemen start to shoot the puck, because those tip-in goals, especially in college hockey, happen at a much higher rate than they do in the NHL, because the physicality is a little bit different at this level depending on who you're playing. But I think that's a lost art on a lot of teams. That is an opportunity for some of them that aren't having success on the power play to kind of capitalize on. So something that I need to keep keeping a closer eye on, and maybe I've just been blind to it and it is happening elsewhere. But I'm personally not seeing it. So I would like to see a return for sure.
You wouldn't be wrong on that. St. Cloud actually on their second unit actually put on 2 defensemen, Josh Lidke and I believe Cooper Wiley, to increase shots from the blue line, right? They're a shoot first kind of defenseman. Begin to try to spark something, right? They want pucks to the net, and they want guys that want to shoot the puck, right? And not go to this is what you're supposed to do, the X's and O's, right? So they got to have that a little bit too. But again, special teams, they'll figure it out. Again, a lot of new faces. That chemistry hasn't been built yet, but foundations there just need to switch things up a bit, switch mentality, and I think they'll be okay.
Yep, totally agree.
So Max, let's go to some college hockey news here real quick before we wrap this up here on what has been a very long day for both of us. How about this? We talk about AIC news and not so good. How about Wisconsin? 2-8 on the season. And I asked a couple of folks around this weekend about the status of Mike Hastings. I'm curious to know if you think he's already on the hot seat. I don't know if he's necessarily boiling, but I don't think his seat is cold either. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say internally at, the Wisconsin roundtable, if you will, probably not that hot. If we're talking about the fan base and people that are, casual observers of the game, could not be hotter because they saw how good this team was a season ago, and they're seeing a catastrophic collapse that we can't even really compare to much of anything else because they don't have a ton of injuries that's leading to all these losses. They're not missing like massive key pieces. They did lose one of the best goalies in the nation, but they brought in the best goalie from Atlantic Hockey last year, and they're just not having success at all. It doesn't matter who they're playing. It doesn't matter what style they're trying to kind of force themselves into. It's mind-boggling to see, and I just don't know that there's a clear answer for it. But yeah, back to whether or not he's going to get fired and canned and have to go back crawling to State. No, I don't think that that's going to be the case, at least not this year. I think he's got a little bit longer leash, just given the pedigree and the success that he had in year one. But there's certainly going to be questions to be answered, and I think they are going to turn it around to be hard to get any worse. I think they do start to find some ways to win here.
We may have lost Max Veech to the airport Wi-Fi. So I think what he was trying to say is, Wisconsin having a tough go on the start. Max, looks like you have come back from the ebbs and flows there, my man. So I thought we had disconnected there when you went around the dark side of the moon. But to kind of wrap up your point, right, Wisconsin, I don't think I'm with you. I don't think there's any rush here. Certainly there's some, I wouldn't say panic, but there's some concerns, and rightfully concerned with your 2-8. But in college hockey, we don't see the coaching changes, as like we see in other, in the pro style, right? These coaches get a little bit of leeway. I don't think anything happens this year. Now, if he continues a similar start next year and then miss the playoffs after next year, and it looks similar, then we may have a different conversation. But I still think there's a bit of a leash for Mike Hastings just in year 2 of his tenure at Wisconsin.
Totally agree with everything that you said there. I appreciate you picking up the slack. I'm sitting in the basement dungeon of the airport here, so the availability of connectivity is not ideal. But
not so much. I want to finish on this, Max, because an important piece to UMD, I don't think we touched on this earlier, Dominic James, who is again out. Is he going to be out for an extended period of time? And what does that do for UMD in terms of their even strength scoring and even more so just overall their offensive output?
Yeah, I would say his absence last weekend, and he did leave with I think 13 minutes left in period 2, if I remember. So of the first game, so he missed the entire second game and the majority of the first game. Certainly was a factor. Again, do I think it necessarily changes the outcome of either one of those games? Probably not. Maybe if he's there on that Saturday game, you get a little bit better start, win some more draws for sure with the talent that he's got there. But everything that we've seen to date, based on the Wednesday presser and news that kind of came out today from Matt Wellens and everybody else that's closer to the program than I, say that he is likely to play. Not that it's a guaranteed thing, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be an extended absence. So, we're really, really thankful for that. In addition to that, Jack Smith, I believe, sounds like he's going to be back, which is another center, that bottom 6 kind of guy that's available and competent. Maybe more than competent to win some of those draws. I think he was their best centerman last year for going on face-off win percentage, but that's not saying a ton. But he's a good player. I mean, he's a good piece there. And then the third one, Max Plant, might be making his return for his first game back since the first game of the season, which would be another huge piece for the Bulldogs that they've missed in terms of an offensive firepower threat that's out there on the ice as well. So as much as I want to see him out there, I do want to make sure he is, going back 100% healthy and has the green flags from everybody around him. I want there to be no, go out there as a decoy. Not that that happens all that much in hockey in general, but I want to see him out there confident with the puck on his stick and playing like he was before. If that means sitting out one more week, so be it. But I also don't want to hold the guy back that's looking to be out there anymore, because he's got that energy that you're really hoping for on a team like UMD.
And they could use that energy as it'll be their first go around here. I'm going on the road for NCHC conference play. Max, just a quick look at the schedule for this weekend. Colorado College is on the road to Kalamazoo. They'll take on the Broncos at Western Michigan. Again, Miami, you guys have the Redhawks again in Oxford, Ohio. Again, that's going to be some intriguing hockey. You'll get to see how, again, this Miami team is already much improved. I think it's going to be a much better series to watch. Denver picking up its first NCHC conference series. They're going to be in Grand Forks taking on the Fighting Hawks. Omaha, which is on a slide. Very not expected from, I think, anybody. As you mentioned at the top of the show, 6 straight losses. They're going to be down in Tempe, first ever visit down there to play Arizona State. In terms of a conference opponent, and my St. Cloud State Huskies, after 5 grueling weeks of a tough non-conference schedule and then opening up NCHC play, will have a bye week this week, so they'll be off. So, Max, any parting thoughts here so we can get you away from the airport?
Parting thoughts. I wanted to come up with a speech for the UMD players so that they could kind of put it in the locker room. Not that they would ever go there, but I'll just say it to the fans, they're good hockey players. I know I kind of shit on them on here a little bit, and I talk about some of the weaknesses on the defensive schemes and all this and that. That's fixable stuff. These are quality players. I love every one of them at UMD. I think they're there for a reason. I think Sandelin's a good coach. I think Kraus is a great coach. I think our staff in general is one of the best in college hockey. We're just not putting all of the pieces together at the same time. If we can do that, I think it's a nice cohesive unit that's got a lot of upside. Play better, play smarter, play stronger, play for each other. I would say when you're playing against North Dakota, any time that you skate into the crease and stop there, 2 North Dakota sweaters that are on you, putting you in a headlock. I just want to put that out there, but they're standing up for their teammates. Do that. Don't be dumb about it. Stand up for your teammates. Play there for one another. I love you. Be well.
Max, I want to echo that before I sign off here. Again, the Bulldogs were ranked the best recruiting class by College Hockey News. These are growing pains. And granted, when you have a freshman class of your size, going from junior hockey or sometimes high school hockey and into college hockey, it's a jump, and it's not just one step, it's a full flight of steps, right? Yeah. Some players transition quicker than others, but you need everybody, to PJ Fleck, right, rowing the oar at the same time. I think Luke will figure it out. Yes, I know, I went there. But I do think it perfectly describes where the Bulldogs are at. The talent is there. I don't think anybody questions that. But they're just getting their feet wet in terms of what college hockey is like. Again, one of the youngest rosters in all of college hockey is Duluth. They'll get better. They'll only look back at this experience, the part of this season, as a building block for what I think is a much better team to come. Yes, does that mean that the wins losses aren't coming right now? Yes, but you don't have a choice here for Scott Sandelin, but other than to let these guys play through the mistakes. They will learn week after week. So with that being said, I'm going to let Max get out of the airport because I'm sure he has had a long travel day. He's ready to get home. So for my friend Max Veech, I'm Nick Maxson. This is, again, NCHC on MNCAA. We'll see you back here next week. Take care.